We've got a bit of climbing to do towards the end. Third category, Alto del Aguilón. And this is where we are. It's 161 kilometers in total today, beginning in Villalba del Duero, heading to Burgos capital itself. Burgos, a region of around 350,000 people in the north of Spain, inland from the sea on what they call the Meseta. Riders leaving the famous wine-producing region. Yes, I'm sure many of you have heard of the Ribera del Duero. Might even have had the luxury of tasting a drop or two of it. Plenty of it growing around these parts, leaving Villalba del Duero and heading to Burgos and Burgos capital. Region in the north of Spain in Castilla y León. This is what happened at the start. Flag dropped, 5 riders attacking, and it all went pretty quickly. You could have probably guessed most of the teams that were going to be involved today. And 5 of them getting up the road. The gap they currently have, well, the last count we had was about 2.5 minutes on a very hot day. This is the 3rd heat wave of the summer in Spain. Temperatures forecast to get up to 40 degrees in places. Currently, at the moment, in the high 30s. Breakaway on day 1 of the Vuelta Burgos. 67 kilometres remaining, and they've got a great gap of 2 minutes and 22 seconds. 5 riders up there. I can tell you that Angel Fuentes in the purple jersey is the only rider from the Burgos region in the whole of this race, the only Burgalés. He's there at the front now, doing his turn. Just behind him, in the white and black, that's José María García Soriano. He rides for the 3rd Division Electro Hiper Europa team, a team that's yet to take a win in any sort of professional cycling this year. Alongside him, another team that's yet to take a win, surprisingly, in 2023, Euskaltel Euskadi. They're represented by Xavier Bersartegui. 2 other names in the breakaway, Josu Echeverría from Caja Rural, and Mattia Bais, always a man familiar to a breakaway, the Italian for Eolo Cometa. 2 minutes 22 then. Looks as though it's the team from UAE Emirates who are doing the work. A couple of sprinters in their ranks today, Ryan Gibbons, but mainly talking about Sebas Molano. And they're working possibly to try and make a sprint happen. Alongside me in the commentary box is Matt Stevens. An absolute pleasure to be back alongside you, Matt. And today we're going to get our first look at how things are looking going and counting down to the Vuelta España.
I can't wait, Rob. Yeah, good to be alongside you. It has been a little while, trying to think back to when the last time was, but no, this is it's relentless in a good way, the racing that we've had. Obviously, we have the Tour de France Family Zwift, World Championships, and here we are. Lots of racing for us to feast our eyes on, and as you say, there are lots of riders here honing their form ahead of the Vuelta, which starts in 9 days' time. It's just under 9 days' time. It's not too far away, and unsurprisingly, with one of the best sprinters amongst the number, Sebastian Molano, of course, who took that win on the final stage of the Vuelta last year when leading out Pascal Ackermann. A slight surprise victory, but a welcome one for the UE team on that particular occasion. And of course, they've got Jay Vine here as well. He'll be eyeing the overall as well as Adam Yates. So looking at the lineup of teams we have here, Rob, we've got some super punchy riders, some riders who are looking to build that condition ahead of the final Grand Tour of the season. And yeah, 8 World Tour teams here, 6 pro teams and 1 continental representation. And it looks like Caja Rural as well have joined in the mix too there, Rob.
Caja Rural, who do have a rider in the breakaway, but of course do have riders who could finish quickly, Edu Prades being one of them. They've got a world champion on the track from Glasgow in their ranks. First ever Portuguese world champion, let's give him a mention, eh? Yuri Leitao is riding for them. Julen Amezqueta, who's been on the World Tour before. Some interesting riders about. It's interesting today in terms of if we do get the sprint as well, because we've got a 3rd category climb just outside 20 kilometres to go. Smallish peloton this. Lots of riders who you wouldn't consider as, you know, I'm going to say thick-legged, full-time sprinters. There aren't many of those in this peloton. Interesting to see what happens when we get there.
Yeah, they do provide. I was just looking. I must admit, generally, my marker pen system for a race, I generally always use the green for sprinters, and I haven't used it too much today. I think I've only actually underlined 3 or 4. So, but that, I mean, this is a hilly race. It's always won by a rider who can climb. We've had some real punchy winners, some super champions in the past few years on this one. But this is the only real opportunity for the sprinters. We move on tomorrow to a team time trial, which we'll talk about in a little bit. 2 hilly stages, or very hilly stages, and then the only mountaintop finish on the final stage. And generally, I don't think many of the sprinters would like really to come to this race. It's just a little bit too hard. But yeah, a field, 103 riders, it's not particular, no, 105 riders starting this race. As you say, Rob, quite a small field, not a lot of pure sprinters here. And what that does, it provides opportunities for other riders who are still handy and are still pretty fast. And that in itself could make for quite an exciting, chaotic finale, which can often make it quite complicated for the few sprinters that are here, because they're riders that are usually in the mix with teams taking their chances. And it also provides a little bit of chaos for us commentators as well, trying to pick out those riders too. But no, head and shoulders, the best sprinter here is Molano, so he'll have a lot of pressure on him today, I think, to try and deliver.
Yeah, that's a coded message to have patience with us when it comes to the
Yes.
finish today.
Thank you, Rob.
Just,
yeah.
just to back that up, last year we had 2 stagiaire wins as well. Both of them from breakaway, so thankfully it didn't catch us commentators too much off guard. But it just shows that this is also a race where we get new stars discovered, especially given that this, with its timing in the calendar, and hasn't suffered too much of a change this year, even with the World Championships. Maybe would have been 5-6 days a week earlier in previous years. It's often the first time that a lot of the stagiaires, the riders who are on work experience in old-fashioned terms, those who are racing at this level for the next few months, likely before turning professional, it's the first time we get to see them in the flesh.
No, it certainly is. We had the winner of the Queen stage, wasn't it? Jumped away last year from AG to Citroën. I was just looking back through the results. His name will come to me in a few moments' time.
He got a contract as a result as well.
He certainly did. But no, it is an interesting field, and as well as opportunities for the other sprinters or other riders who might consider themselves a chance. I do think there'll be interesting riders who'll be penetrating the top 10 here overall as well, especially from some of the Spanish teams, riders that we don't know too much about. And the Vuelta Burgos for some of the smaller teams, especially the Electro Hyper Europa team, this will be one of the biggest races of the year for them, racing against World Tour opposition. And generally, when we get riders from smaller teams riding with World Tour squads, they really do up their game. It's the real focus of their season. And it puts them in the shop window. Bit of a commentator's cliche, but look at this, number 144, Garcia, is out in the breakaway with some punchy riders. Their chances are slim of staying away today, but we've seen increasingly over the last few years, Rob, breaks are harder and harder to catch. They're not given anywhere near as much leeway as they would. We occasionally see big gaps go out, but increasingly the quality, the general quality of riders across the board now is so much higher than it was a few years ago. So everybody who gets in a move has to be given respect. That's why we're seeing UAE Team Emirates making sure they keep a lid on this break.
And one of the interesting things in this race as well, and an extra reason to keep a lid on the break, if you're just thinking in pure numbers, Matt, there are 5 riders out in this breakaway. That means 5 teams are involved in the breakaway. In this particular race, given the fact that we're on a lot of these narrow provincial roads in Burgos, the scenery is absolutely not quite otherworldly, but it's you're in the back end of Spain here, where there's not a lot happening in between a lot of the villages we see in Burgos. It's very, very sparsely inhabited. Only 15 teams here. So if there are 5 teams already taken up in the break that aren't going to chase their mates down, you've got less and less teams who are going to be involved in that chase, just maybe giving that slight bit of advantage to the guys in front.
Yeah, definitely. There's always going to be teams, smaller teams as well, with a protected rider who will do some sort of lead out, but they'll be told to leave all the heavy lifting to the bigger squads with a fancied rider. I mean, looking at Caja Rural, the reason they're riding here, you talked about Yuri Leitão, the Portuguese rider. Will he be their protected sprinter, or will it be Prades who can sprint as well? That's an interesting one. They've got 2 clear options, that team. But yeah, a lot of the smaller teams will look to them, and it really is a numbers game. And we know how important the lead out is. We know this new dynamic way of racing is forcing teams to reconsider how they race. And so we get this gaps not going out quite as much as they are, and also teams with a sprinter leaving it increasingly late, so you get this real chaos towards the finale. But looking ahead at today's finale, we saw at the top of the show, didn't we, a really interesting little fly-through, as it were. As you said, hopefully the traffic would have gone by then, but it's relatively straightforward. It's not an overly complicated finish. There's a 90-degree right-hand with about 800 metres to go, and it's a straight-in finish. But one thing I did notice, Rob, which it's really interesting. With rider safety is absolutely key, isn't it? Increasing focus on that. But in the road book that I've downloaded, there was not just details of where the race goes, but photographs of every single junction and the direction that the rider should take it, which is something, do you know what, I've never seen before. So kudos to the organisers of this race for giving so much attention to detail, because this is a smaller race, a smaller budget, but that attention to detail is massively important.
Yeah, there was a little bit of criticism on one of the stages last year where there were a lot of unnecessary crashes. There was a sprint in a strange position. But then again, on the other side, there were a lot of sports directors, riders themselves, who did come out and congratulate everybody in the organisation for putting that together. It was an excellent thing, and in our point of view, we were just surprised by the timing of it there. We weren't expecting it straight off the opening titles, but it is wonderful to see, and I hope we continue to get it every day. So well played, enhorabuena to the organisers of the Vuelta Burgos. Maybe you can understand a little error in the playing in today. It's a public holiday in Spain today, so we're all with our feet up. Well, some of us were until about 5 to 3. It's a very, very hot day. As I say, it's the third heat wave of what's been an extremely hot summer, and you can see how barren everything is around here. And this is the north of Spain, let's not forget. So it's a lot of people maybe... If it were a bit cooler, maybe be on the side of the road, but a lot of people will be having their afternoon siestas and waking up, watching the afternoon news and flicking on the cycling. That is the cycling fans' traditional routine, by the way, in Spain. That's how the Tour de France gets all the viewers down the years. Now, we've got change. We've got one team moving up on the far side. It looks like it's the dark green jerseys of the team who missed the break, actually, Equipo Kern Pharma. Not that they were really fighting for the break, so they perhaps have other plans today.
Yeah, quite interesting. That was a big, quite a definitive move. Everybody, at least 5 of their riders moving up on the left-hand side to give some assistance. The lead has hardly fluctuated at all. We started at the top of the programme about 2:16, so it's holding steady at the moment. They seem to be happy to let this break stay where it is, but just hold it. And they've got plenty of riders to do that. Of course, there are some riders in the peloton that can just hold the pace. It's amazing. Their finish line have been a completely different place. They won't, of course, have to ride all the way to the finish line, so they can use the extra little bit of energy to hold this pace. Riders quite often that are unheralded, to be fair, as we get a glimpse of some gels being taken on board.
That's Josu Echevarria, Basque rider riding for Caja Rural. Caja Rural, a team from northern Spain themselves, from Navarra, just to the east of the Basque region. It was part of Navarra itself. It's actually Basque-speaking, just the complicated makeup of modern-day Spain. And we're not too far, actually, from the Basque country in Burgos. Just south-southwest, a couple of Basque provinces actually border Burgos, as does the Rioja region, another famous wine-making region. Rioja, strictly in the Basque country, but very, very close.
Yeah, we've not got, just looking at those giant windmills in the background, only one of them was turning, but there's only about 6 or 7 km/h wind today blowing, and for the most part of the day, the average speed's actually dropped ever so slightly, but still pretty decent. But for the vast majority of the day, actually, we're travelling from south to north, and then we move in basically a northeasterly direction, or an easterly direction, to the finish in Burgos, and the wind is mostly in the head, sort of cross headwind for the vast majority of the day. But as you can see, not too much movement of these dry grasses on either side of the road. And one thing that's interesting about this part of Spain as well, there's never a lot of trees. It's a really interesting landscape to pass through. It's beautiful, but in its own really rugged way, isn't it?
Or in the region of Castilla León, the province of Burgos. Burgos has its own capital city, which of course takes the same name as the province. And exactly what you're saying, Matt, you get plane after plane after plane. And believe it or not, this is actually, we're at altitude here. Constantly, even though we're on the flat roughly, we're at altitude, and that is what centre of Spain is like. It's what they call the meseta, the plateau, and it runs all the way from this region when you get away from the coast, over past places like Asturias, Galicia, the Basque Country. You get into central Spain, and it runs all the way down towards Andalusia, right in the south of Spain. And out until the east, you get to the mountains in the western side of the Valencian community. And when you're here, when you're down in Madrid, for example, you're always at altitude, even though you don't think you are. I'm not talking silly numbers here, South American numbers or anything like that, but most of today's stage takes place over 700 metres above sea level. And that's on the flat. So just to show you, as we do get a change here, and we're looking for a change of wind, and this is knowledge that's been implemented by Equipo Kern Pharma, and it looks as though we're going to have a race. Just look at the way they moved up, look at the way they're racing here. We get a change of direction, we have the wind blowing, and suddenly the likes of Primož Roglic and co, who are at the back chatting to their mates, are going to need to wake up.
Yep, they certainly are. This is a quite focused little move here, isn't it? They moved up on the left-hand side. I thought they were just going to get involved in the chase, but normally it would be just one or two riders they'd send up, not the entire team. As you can see, an acute change of direction, that hard left-hand turn, and they've not quite put it in the gutter, but they're only allowing half of the road to be used. In fact, they're just about allowing enough for them to rotate, and I can tell you there's going to be some riders towards the back of this group that are going to be struggling in the wind, but you can just see a couple of riders that are looking behind here. UAE Team Emirates, unsurprisingly, very well represented. Molano actually there in fourth wheel, and riders constantly moving up the outside, but already the riders of Equipo Pharma that would Equipo Kern Pharma, if I can get the right words out, are actually trying to slip back, and the gap as a result, we've lost about 25 seconds just in the space of 2 or 3 Ks after that big acceleration. Movistar also trying to move up, and look at this, the ragged tail end of that bunch.
And that's not the whole peloton there. That is not the whole peloton. I know it's a small bunch, but there were riders off the back here. And we just saw a shot, didn't we? Attila Valter and Primož Roglic talking to each other. A few of their teammates have had to move up. It's since been UAE Emirates who got on the radio and started drilling it again. They're looking behind now to survey any damage done. Equipo Kern Pharma continue to work as a couple of their other riders sit in towards the front. You could see a panic too from Movistar, who moved up as well. They've been caught out by this. Another team having to move up, the green jerseys there, moving into the far side of Bora Hansgrohe. And it's all over the place suddenly, this.
It is. You could see that. That was a big engine on the front. That's the unmistakable sight of Eduardo Afina. That man can put out some watts, can't he? You could see the rider in the green from Equipo Kern Pharma struggling in his wake just to shut a 1 or 2 metre gap. It has eased. And actually, Affini's just signed another long-term contract that's just going to keep him with the Dutch team for another 3 years, in fact. Eduardo Affini, meanwhile, up in front, moving effectively, still unperturbed by what's going on behind, although they've lost the best part of a minute of their lead is our breakaway, and they really are shifting here. The speed's in excess at the moment, by the look of things here, of 53 k's an hour.
This is the part of Spain, and it's funny, I was just talking about the meseta, the plateau in the centre of Spain, and that is the part in the Vuelta where we often get those crazy windy days, the transitional stages that on paper don't look like they're ever going to be anything, but every 2 or 3 years we have a stage that just goes crazy from start to finish in the Vuelta on these sorts of roads.
Do you remember one of the most famous had, I think it might have been the fastest Vuelta stage ever, won by Philippe Gilbert, when it was basically a cross tailwind all day long, and we saw Soudal Quickstep, as they are now, put bigger chain rings on, 54, 55, 56 chain rings, and from the off took the field apart. I think they placed 4 riders in the first 20, and Philippe Gilbert won. I think the average speed was at 53 k's an hour for the fastest, or the second fastest road stage in history. But yeah, it's not uncommon for the Vuelta on those stages that you don't think anything's going to happen, to actually break apart a lot. And it can be quite nervous riding in a peloton like this, knowing there are changes of direction, but importantly, Rob, knowing there's no shelter. There's not a lot of villages to pass through to offer up that shelter from the wind from the left or the right. It's completely barren. And as you say, if the wind blows in the right direction and the team wants to take it up, it can be very dangerous. But things have calmed a little bit now as we see Sanchez at the back looking for some hydration.
That is Luis Leon Sanchez, and welcome back to the peloton. We haven't seen him since he crashed out of the Tour de France. Experienced rider who's already started the Giro and the Tour in the same year. Might be about to start 3 Grand Tours in a year, as you see everybody bunched up here in the peloton.
Yeah, I think this that little bit of a foray didn't really come to anything. There was only a couple of half-hearted efforts from other teams. UAE, I think rather UAE weren't really bothered about breaking it up. I think they were just happy to just continue the pace. One rider from Jumbo-Visma suggests that everybody wants to keep this one together today, but you have to doff your cap to Equipo Kern. It's good, this disruptive way of racing, other teams taking it up, going against the grain a little bit, I think is massively important, and is a demonstration the smaller teams here are here to play a real part and just to do things a little bit differently. So I do applaud teams to think differently, try something, and we're seeing the racing. Often there are teams, I think the riders now are almost primed to be in this state of attentiveness, to acknowledge the fact that the racing is increasingly going earlier and earlier, and they're not necessarily going to be the ones that start things off. You've just got to be ready and attentive all the time. You have this longer phase of racing that is very, very nervous now. You cannot, in modern day racing, I don't think there's any time where you can switch off totally.
I was watching your interview with Mathieu van der Poel that was available online to watch. And if you haven't watched it, I think you did it in conjunction with Swift, didn't you, the training platform? Have a look at it, and Mathieu talks about that to you, as well as trying a few Scottish delicacies. Let you see that when you switch on. But yes, talking about how racing has changed. And we're seeing it even in the most traditional of races here in Vuelta Burgos. We've come through a very small town along the way to the regional capital. And very much kudos, as you were saying, to Juan Horos, sports director at Equipo Kern Pharma, former rider with Euskaltel. He was a World Tour pro for quite a while. Another change of direction here. The route's well designed to try and create those crosswind opportunities in these regions. Back of the peloton looks like this. Panic is over for the moment for Primož Roglič and Jumbo-Visma. It's a busy day for them. They're announcing a brand new arrival in terms of transfer. It's been talked about for a while. Matteo Jorgensen, the American rider who did so well in the early part of this season with Team Movistar, has announced that he has signed for Jumbo-Visma. So the strengthening continues.
Yeah, they've got such I mean, we haven't really had a chance to go through the teams that are here, but just the squad they've brought to this race as well. Primož Roglič, Robert Geesink, Koen Bouwman, Eduardo Affini, Gijs Lemreze, Jan Tratnik, another rider just coming back from injury after, felt so. Jan Tratnik, such a likeable rider, crashed whilst warming up for this opening stage of the Giro d'Italia. And I understand hasn't raced since. He's been going through a stage of recuperation, but Tratnik's here, and Attila Valter. There's no slack in that team at all, but they continue to build. And they're going to, looking at the way that they took the Tour de France on again this year, they're going to keep on winning that one. And of course, they've got a big chance, a big opportunity to take 3 Grand Tours this year, and they just keep on firming that team up, don't they? It is an immensely strong team, and to me, I think it's by far now the strongest team in the world. With, I think, UAE Team Emirates a close second, perhaps.
Well, they're not doing bad in their recruitment either. They seem to be going for all the best young talent around in the world at the moment and continuing to develop that. And in terms of Jumbo-Visma, they've got 7 strong riders here that will form the backbone of their Vuelta España team. There's little doubt about that. Geesink, who had to miss, of course, as well in the Giro due to a very late COVID positive. He's signed to continue another year, by the way, and he'll be riding around Spain. And let's not forget, to the names that you listed, there's a certain Mr. Jonas Vingegaard to add into the mix as well, who'll be riding the Vuelta España.
Yeah, there's 4 riders that are on the long list to ride riding this race in Burgos. That is Roglič, Geesink, Tratnik and Attila Valter. The team's still not decided, although we've got just over a week and a half to go until that race. But there are some teams haven't announced any riders yet. But interesting, across at Bahrain Victorious, we've got Buitrago, the wonderful Colombian climate, and Damiano Caruso, who'll be going there. But none of the riders for EF, for example, are down yet to do the Vuelta, not on the long list. So it's interesting the different approaches that are available for various teams, given the sheer amount of racing, and also given what the leaders have done this year. Have they done any Grand Tours, or are they doing the Giro Tour or whatever? So it is quite a mix. There are different opportunities at this time of the year with a particularly dense racing programme. Although this is one of the classic approaches, isn't it? This is the first race back for Roglic, of course. I'm intrigued to see how he'll go. Probably be absolutely flying, won't he?
He rarely races if he isn't absolutely flying. Not too far to the start of the Vuelta from here in terms of days. Vuelta this year starts in Barcelona, finishes in Madrid. It's like the air shuttle that takes place each and every day. And it is Catalonia to the Madrid community. And taking in mostly northern Spain. They'll go down south first, up north, and then head to the Sierra de Madrid, the mountains around the Spanish capital, to finish things off. Angliru is back this year. Beast of a mountain in Asturias.
Hugh Carthy's back this year as well, the man that won on it last. Well, he's won on it recently.
Yeah, it's a frightening prospect. I say that as somebody who's weighing up going and riding it this year on the day. I think I might have to shed a few kilos first, exactly. Into Udego. And we just saw a few people out and about. As I said, it's the Assumption Day today, national holiday in Spain. National holiday, in fact, in many Mediterranean countries today. A traditional, what was a Catholic holiday. It's, in fact, a few years ago today, was it 3 years ago today, since we had the August Giro di Lombardia, Ferragosto in Italy, and that awful crash for Remco Evenepoel down the ravine. Quickly time changes and moves on.
Yeah, I think there's a micro siesta going on in the bunch after that little flurry of attacks, or that little move off the front there from the keeper, Kern Farmer. And the lead has been re-established. And there's a first glimpse of Oya Lescano as well. What a season he's had. I mean, he emerged, didn't he, and Het Nieuwsblad. It was Het Nieuwsblad, wasn't it, when he finished in second place, wasn't it?
Dwars of Vlaanderen,
sorry.
Yeah.
Dwars of Vlaanderen.
Same roads, don't you worry.
Same roads, But, and now it's a Spanish road champion too. So what a season he's having. There he is, on the front. Unmistakable. And that iconic jersey.
Oya Lescano's from the Basque Country. Just behind him is Carlos Berona, who's expected to leave the team at the end of this year, by the way. That's the talk, or has been the talk for a while. Still no decision either way. He has been having a bit of time off as well. Lives in Andorra nowadays, like many pro cyclists do, but he's from Madrid originally. Garcia Cortina's here as well. Keep your eye out on him. He's not having a bad time of it. Comes from Gijón in Asturias, and this is Damiano Caruso from Sicily in Italy. Bahrain victorious with the man who won the opening stage last year, actually, in their ranks, Santiago Buitrago. He punches on the left-hand side.
Indeed. It's always easy to recognise. He has a different helmet on, doesn't it?
Commentator's dream.
Now, they've got a very good team, of course, led by Alexander Vlasov. He'll be heading to the Vuelta, as will Lenny Kemner as well. Watch out for both of those riders today. Just looking at anybody who can sprint from Bora Hansgrohe as well. It is really... I'm glad you mentioned Ivan Cortina, because he can put off a reasonable sprint. So I'm gradually going to have a deeper dive into this peloton to see the sorts of riders, the types of riders that may feature in the finish today. But yeah, it looks like we've got this little phase now where there's a gentle, a light, maybe slightly brittle Entente Cordiale, as we're in one direction now. Knowledge of what's ahead is so important. It does afford you to relax just a little bit. But I tell you what, this break are doing a good job, noticeably quicker than the rest of the bunch behind, and moving very effectively. 2:22 now. Yes, they've got that advantage right up again. They're approaching the intermediate sprint that comes in just over 4 kilometres time. It takes place at Villanueva de Agaño, pardon me. And again, still in the wilderness here. They call empty Spain, La España vacía.
historically, post-Civil War, a lot of families left all these small villages and moved to towns and cities to look for work and food. There was great poverty and great hunger, actually, in Spain after the Civil War. I mean, given certainly where you and I are from in Northern Europe, what we learn at schools always to do seemingly with the Second World War and things like that in our history lessons. But down here in Spain, after the Civil War, there was a huge famine, a lot of hunger, a lot of people really, really struggling, whatever side of the awful conflict they found themselves on, their families, recrimination. There's horror stories that are uncovered every year in each town and city, but it explains a lot of the movement and why Spanish towns and cities as they are, certainly architecturally as well, a lot of big blocks of flats suddenly had to be built from out of nowhere to accommodate people moving from out in the sticks and in to find work. And a lot of these small villages now, there's actually great incentives to move to the countryside again. Things like, you know, digital nomad visas and tax breaks and high-speed internet that's been put into all of these little towns and villages in the middle of nowhere, in the hope that they can attract population again. We're having a good look at plenty of them here today. Great farming area is Burgos. Winemaking area too, and we'll get a little look through the vineyards as we go on this week, and there'll be a traditional trip on the final day up to the beautiful Lagunas de Neila. We'll have the final stage, the mountain stage.
Yeah, it's a beauty. It has its own beauty. It's a start I've ridden when doing transfers on the Vuelta a few years back. I was struck by how it has its own unique identity, but I find it quite peaceful, you know. Just hardly seeing anybody at all, and even most of the little towns and villages that you pass through, and they are, as you said, Rob, very few and far between, themselves almost match the feeling that you have in the countryside. They hardly move. It's almost as if they're uninhabited, but they are. But a lot of the time people are tucked away outside of the furnace-like heat, especially in September and August in Spain. But you can eat so well. One of my abiding memories of travelling the Vuelta a few years ago for Eurosport was the quality of the food in these little villages and sometimes quite isolated hotels for next to nothing. I think the 2018, or was it the 2019 Vuelta, is one of my best ever grand tours for the quality of food. And how welcoming the people were as well, when you could find them, that is.
It's very different than visiting traditional tourist Spain. I say that as somebody who lives in traditional tourist Spain, and I lived in several parts that could be classed as that, but it is extremely different when you come up to here, and the welcome is that much more genuine. They're not fed up of seeing tourists on every corner. They really, really want to be as hospitable as possible. And yeah, there are places that a lot of people, certainly this time of year, would visit as well. This is national holiday time, as it is in many continental European countries. Everybody takes time off in August. And certainly today is a national holiday, but a hot day out. As you can see, the salt already on the jerseys there. And here's the man, or there was the man in the purple jersey. You'll know these roads better than anybody, Ángel Fuentes, who comes from Burgos itself. Gap at 2:25, and we've got the same team on the front, but a bit of a reordering behind. You've got a few more of the general classification teams who are making sure they're not far from the front now and staying attentive. Those who perhaps weren't and were almost caught out when we saw the small crosswind attack not too long ago from Kern Farmer. But it's still UAE Emirates who are taking the responsibility here. And we've talked about Jumbo-Visma, but UAE Emirates come here not just looking at the sprint. They've got Sebas Molano and maybe Ryan Gibbons to help on that regard, but in terms of the GC, Adam Yates leads. George Bennett's here to support. The likes of Oliveira there for the flat, Domen Novak and Jay Vine. It's not a bad lineup, is it?
It's not bad at all. Again, no slack at all in that team. Adam Yates not going to the Vuelta though, after an amazing Tour de France. By the man from Bury, but no, I wonder how he'll play it, because he's not going to the Vuelta. Is he all in for the win? Is it for Jay. He's down as the leader. Quite often, for most riders, oh, well, here we go. We're missing the hotspot sprint.
And here comes that intermediate sprint on the left-hand side with a white jersey. Garcia's opened it up, but he's going to run out of gas. Here comes the local boy, though, Fuentes. And look at him through the centre. There is that local knowledge. He knew where to go, and he's taken it.
It was a good sprint, that was, wasn't it? It was a very strong sprint. Using that free speed as well to recover, getting low before they combine forces again. Now, that was a strong sprint.
Ángel Fuentes there, 26 years of age, from Burgos. Here he goes again. You can see, just following here, he's on the wheel of the rider from Euskaltel, who is Berasategui. The left-hand side, Garcia going, third division rider. But he's at the game quickly, isn't he? And Fuentes, at this point, he's the only man who's going to get anywhere near it.
Yeah. No, good timing. Had a huge gear moving there, but that was a strong sprint. But they've got to reconfigure here. They've built themselves up a good lead. We've got, I would say, probably just under an hour of racing to go. And they've still got a lead of 2 minutes 15 seconds. But look how quickly they're back in order. That sprint's done. It's behind them. And they need to keep it going. I think this is a strong little move, you know. And just going back to what we're talking about earlier, Rob, with the lack of big teams of sprinters here, and teams with maybe 1 or 2 riders that are quick and will take their opportunities to run a top 10, maybe even a top 5. They will look towards the big teams that do have sprinters. And as you say, although UAE Team Emirates have got a cracking team here, are they going to necessarily want to use up Yates, Jay Vine, those sorts of riders? Ryan Gibbons could possibly win this stage, but I think he'll be used as the last lead-out rider. Domen Novac has already been used a lot. This could be quite interesting. It really, really could.
I saw it last year with victories for Agir Désert and Bahrain in terms of stagiaires. Agir Désert have 2 fast riders themselves. They might think about getting involved. They've got Dorian Godon and Andrea Vendrame. But once again, will they fancy their chances against the likes of Garcia Cortina and Sebas Molano in a flat sprint? It's a difficult thing to contribute. One thing to try your luck and see what happens. Another thing to sacrifice riders and go for it with the team, isn't it? And have a go, as we see the brand new Portuguese road champion in Ivo Oliveira showing off his jersey. Fresh off the track. And here at the back, number 137 is Joey Roskop. Rider we've seen on our screens for a long time now, many years, racing for Q36.5, who aren't having too bad a year of it. Not really setting things alight, but they've been solid in their debut season. Indeed,
they certainly have. They won very early on as well, as you said. I think they've had a punch well above their weight, and are recruiting, as we're in that middle of that recruitment phase, aren't we? Lots of transfers happening across both the men's and women's sport, but interesting signing for them for next year. Giacomo Nizzolo is moving back across to the Q36.5 squad. I say back across because it's the team of Doug Ryder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. It's risen from the ashes of the defunct team that Nizzolo rode for several years for.
Yeah, officially it's a new licence, a new team, but you look down at the staff, even the sports directors here, Alex Sanz Vega, the Catalan sports director, and Gabriele Mizaglia as well, they've both been with the team and the other team in the past few years as well, and all under the orders of Doug Ryder. Confirmation, I should say, 3 seconds, 2 seconds and 1 second of those 3 places in the intermediate sprint. Time bonuses. Good news for Ángel Fuentes, although he doesn't have to compete with anybody else on the start list this year for the best Burgales rider jersey and presentation. So whatever happens, he's going to the podium every day, that man. It's not bad, is it? Just for turning up.
It's not bad at all. As we look at what do I think? Gaps come down a little bit now. It's Jay Vine, just sat at the back there. Just looking at the lineup of UAE and looking at the fact that we do have an opening team time trial for the Vuelta. I think really tomorrow's stage, if we can look ahead to that, is going to be a battle between Jumbo-Visma and UAE, isn't it? Because I can't see anybody coming close, although they may be close because it's only a shortened time trial, a relatively short distance, only 13k, so it's going to be, I tell you what, team time trials are hard enough, Rob, but short team time trials are horrible. They really, really are. If you're on a bad day, given the speeds that these teams are capable of going at. If you're not on a good one, it can be horrifyingly painful, that's for sure. But yeah, Jumbo-Visma, UAE, an important day tomorrow actually to drill, although it's not the entire team that's going to be riding, a very important day to try and get as organised as you can, because there's hardly any opportunities in pro racing for team time trialling these days. It's almost something that appears to be slowly fading away, if you ask me.
Yeah, out of fashion, out of vogue. But if there's one in a Grand Tour, you can bet your life that there'll be a rehearsal in another race for it somewhere. 40 kilometres to go on day one in Burgos. Spanish national holiday today. But they're working hard up front. 4 out of 5 riders in the break are Spaniards. And back at the peloton, there's the Spanish champion, Oyer Lascano from the Basque Country. Having a conversation there with one of the riders from the local team, Burgos. He's actually the only Monegasque rider in the whole pro peloton, Victor Langelotti. It's a Monegasque, not used to the denim, rider from Monte Carlo, from Monaco, the Principality. Of course, ironically, it's where many professional cyclists live, for other reasons. But he is born and bred in Monaco. Not there because he earns a few bob.
Yeah, talking about slightly tangential, Rob, although we have just come back off the World Championship, so it's a weak segue, but talking about small, very, very small countries, I met a rider who rode the Worlds for the Vatican at the World Championships. Well, the world rode the World Road Race for the Vatican, which was, I've never seen that before, never heard it before. He had an interesting white jersey with gold on it, and a gold and white bike as well. Had a nice conversation with him in Glasgow. So, have you ever come across that before?
It happened for the first year in the Worlds in Australia last year. I'm conscious of it because I know I was working on the event. I had it in my head because it was something new. Maybe I think to see the rider in question, with all respect to him, he is an amateur rider. You would have had to have switched on very early and been watching through the middle of the night with us, so I can understand why a lot of people in Europe might not have seen him. He's a Dutch rider of Dutch nationality, but I think it's one of his family members, maybe his partner, who works in the Vatican City administration, and therefore he qualified. And the UCI were quite happy to have the Vatican represented. So yes, the Vatican City, and it's something we've seen the last couple of years. It is one of the most distinct jerseys, isn't it, in the peloton?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very, very distinct indeed. I'll tell you what, though, UAE, while we're having a chat about that, UAE have taken off a fair chunk of that lead. 104 just shows how strong they are, isn't it? And it wouldn't actually surprise me, just a busy building that condition, that one or two of the riders who might be even eyeing a bit of GC will just do a couple of Ks on the front just to open up the taps. Bear in mind that many of these riders have come off a period of being laid off. Jay Vine, in particular, has been at altitude for a long time. As we get to look at Nicolas Prudhomme's lunch.
Bon appétit.
Making sure he's keeping cool as well. We can just see quite often when they pick up the beat-ons in these sorts of weather conditions, as you can just see there, the other rider there dropping some ice onto his neck, held together in a pair of tights generally, as it just slowly seeps through, keeping them as cool as is reasonably possible. But a long line now, Rob, look at this, 38 Ks to go, and very strong out here, and a ruthlessly efficient job being done by UAE team members right now.
One long line. It's gone down to below 1 minute for the first time. Worth reminding that we're on a period now of road on the complete flat, more or less. And then we go to our only classified climb of the day, the Alto del Aguilón. And it's not too much different than several other of the climbs we've had today. It's the only one that's been chosen to be classified by the organisers so that we can have a King of the Mountains competition. At the minute, unless something changes, it's looking okay for those riders in the break to do it, but they've got to be careful here. They've got to ride to deserve their chance. They need to ride for another 10 kilometres or so to give themselves an opportunity of taking this. And look at this, the last 10 minutes, the lead part of the race has been travelling at 38.9 kilometres per hour, but also in the last 10 minutes, as you remarked, Matt, It's almost 10 kilometres per hour quicker in the peloton.
Yeah, they just found another gear. Again, the fact that, of course, the riders in front, not a super long day today. The total distance of today's stage, running south to north, 161 k's, so not super long by professional standards, but they have been out in front all day, and it is hard terrain, gently undulating. 5 of them there, so they spent a lot of time on the front. But UAE Team Emirates are making it look easy, stamping their authority on this race. They've still got to catch them, but it's going to make the riders out in front think a little bit differently. And also, the top of the climb, Rob, comes with 23 k's to go, so they've got, just 13 k's to the top of the climb, but it's not particularly steep. It's a main road climb, it's a long drag at 2.4 k's at 4.3% average, so they'll be riding up that climb at probably 35-37 k's an hour, that sort of slope. So it's almost like an intermediate sprint, but as you say, it's an opportunity for the organisers. And when you look at the route, they've actually gone off the main route to find the climb to come back onto the flat to run into the city as well. So it's quite interesting that, but again, it's important for a race, isn't it, to get everybody in one of the jerseys ahead of stage 2.
Imagine any of the local cycling supporters who are brave enough to be in the sunshine at this time of day will be making a nice atmosphere on the climb as well. I say that, and I know that a lot of people in Northern Europe will be saying, hang on a minute, it should be out in the sun. Here in Spain, most people stay out of the sun between around the hours of 12 to 4 and 5. That's why you're near the beach, you'll see it populated as the tourists leave at 5 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Locals will come down and spend their early evenings there. 54 seconds here as UAE just start to knock it off a little bit for the moment.
Yeah, you wonder if that's come back from the team car. Look, guys, you're actually bringing it in a little bit too quickly. You don't want to open things up too much, and they're clearly capable of bringing this back at will now, aren't they? Contrary, actually, to what I was saying earlier on, UAE are mightily strong now.
Into las Quintanillas, as we see a few riders off the back able to get back on. Cut down to 48 seconds. Having re-seen and re-watched what we just saw as well, it looked as though not just sort of knocking it off. I think teams were trying to move up for the corner, weren't they?
Yeah.
Because they knew what was coming up through the town here, so UAE taking it on again. And you can't imagine that there's a reason to bring it back too soon, but they don't want to let this opportunity go for Sebas Molano, who quite clearly on paper is one of the, if not the fastest rider here today.
He certainly is. Well, the rider that I would imagine will be doing a bit of leading out as well is Ryan Gibbons. He's the man on the front. Former South African road champion, of course, doing a very good job. Rode the Road Worlds. A few days off and then headed here. And again, that just shows how versatile riders have to be, Rob, because it is likely that he will still be the rider that drops off Molano at the finish. But what they don't want to do maybe is use maybe just yet the likes of Bennett, Yates and Jay Vine for obvious reasons. So the men who've been doing the heavy lifting have been Novak, Oliveira and Gibbons. And Gibbons given the fact that there aren't a lot of sprint teams here, and he is an exceptionally strong rider. As we get nearer the finish and the pace picks up, he'll probably drop back again, rest up and then go again right at the end. But that's quite unusual. But given the makeup of the squad here, that's the thing I think that he might have to do. So do a bit of riding now, give Novak a bit of a rest, and then save Oliveira and Novak for the final maybe 15 or 20, 15 Ks or so roughly, and then he'll rest up and I would imagine lead out a Molano. But there's other riders. There's an interesting. What will Affini do? Will Jumbo-Visma give Affini an opportunity to get involved in the sprint? You know, he's not a sprinter, but sometimes we've seen him get involved, haven't we?
Looking down at Jens Kukkeler as well. I mentioned Godon, Vendrame, Garcia Cortina has to have a go. I mean, if he doesn't have a go today, when isn't he?
Yeah. Even looking at Astana, Rob, I mean, it would be rolling back the years, but Fabio Fellini in a field like this might give it a bit of a nudge as well. He hasn't really been sprinting well for a couple of years, would prefer an uphill finish, but I'm really having to delve deep into these squads to look at riders that might want to give it a go today. But that does mean that there's the possibility of teams being caught by surprise here as well. Given the sort of finish we've got, because there are teams who don't have sprinters, it provides an opportunity perhaps to attack, go long, be disruptive in this finale.
Very short lump and bump inside the last 4Ks as well. Be interesting to see if anybody has what it takes to just steal away, then downhill in towards the city centre, but that would require something pretty special if you're looking at the profile. We're inside 33 kilometres to go here, and the gap's down to 46 seconds for the 5 breakaway riders. The man in the green and white here, representing Caja Rural, Josu Echevarria. He's alongside Mattia Bais from Eolo Cometa, Jose Maria Garcia Soriano from Electro Hiper Europa, 3rd division team from Spain, and Xavier Bersartegui from Euskaltel Euskadi. Home rider, the only home rider in the whole bunch here at the Vuelta Burgos. I'm talking about home rider in terms of a Burgales, a rider from this region. He's wearing 81, and that's Ángel Fuentes. Been in this team since he turned pro. Came through the ranks at the Contador Foundation before turning professional just before the pandemic, actually. And here he is, wearing 81 at the back, hoping to get his place in the Vuelta España squad, because Burgos BH will again be riding the Vuelta España this year.
Just thinking back a couple of years ago when they took that magnificent stage, was it first and second or first and third on the stage, didn't they? I think it might have been 2018, Rob, or 2019. Years and years of riding this race, animating it, getting in those full-on breakaways, and then that one day it all came together, didn't it? I think Jetse Bol was the other rider away. Who was the name of the rider that won on that day?
Ángel Madrazo.
There we go, McLovin, as we fondly call him. So they have had success, haven't they?
They certainly have, and he's a rider from Cantabria. He'll be hoping to be on home roads again this year as the Vuelta will approach the final few stages, actually, stopping briefly in Cantabria, then going to Asturias before they go south towards the mountains on the outskirts of Madrid. 48 seconds and staying stable for now. This is a good position, and you can see, if you look to the top right side of the picture, just gone out of the picture now, that's the breakaway. Here's the peloton. It looks a small group, I know, but only 15 teams of 7 riders are here. It's a relatively small peloton for a professional race, isn't it, the Vuelta Burgos? A peloton that's seeing riders prepare to leave and change jersey at this time of year. Transfers being announced. We already mentioned a couple earlier on today. I can tell you that we've got Eolo Cometa in the break, and a rider that you've seen several times during the Giro d'Italia in the last couple of years. Vincenzo Albanese has today announced that he is leaving Eolo Cometa. There's a lot of rumour during the Giro that he might be going to Astana, but that is not happening. He's moving to France instead. He's going to ride for Arkea Samsic next year. So Vincenzo Albanese to Arkea Samsic has been announced today. And talking of Astana, Kazakhstan, they've announced a rider today. It's left field signing, really, but they've got a pretty good history developing riders from this nation. Anton Charmig, from, ex-Danish rider, has decided to leave the team that is on the up, and he's heading to Astana, Kazakhstan to the World Tour. So Anton Charmig signing today for Astana, Kazakhstan. That's a signing, like the other ones we've announced, that will come to fruition at the end of this season.
Yeah, it has been some really interesting moves in the transfer market, and Warren Barguil is on the move as well, isn't he? So leaving Arkea Samsic, I'll tell you where he's off to in a moment, but that's just been announced over the last couple of days. So it's one of my favourite times of year, apart from opening weekend, when things really kick off and we get excited about the racing. There's some expected moves that have been in the rumour mill for quite a long time, and then there's some ones that are really quite left field and quite interesting. But yeah, and then of course there's that little period of time at the start of the year, us commentators bedding in to seeing riders in different jerseys. Always very interesting. And then some teams, of course, extending contracts with riders for multiple years. And UAE Emirates are one of the teams that are really nailing down riders for long-term contracts. In fact, Jay Vine now with UAE till 2027.
We're talking soccer numbers there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Some of the financial deals not quite there either yet, but they're certainly vastly improved on what they were in the last few years. We've been racing for 3 hours here in Burgos. Ángel Fuentes, Josu Echeverría, Xavier Bersategui, Matías Bais and José María García all up the road. 4 Spaniards and an Italian. Of those Spaniards, 1 from Burgos here at the back, 2 Basque riders as well. And we're inside the final 30 kilometres. 49 seconds for a breakaway that, well, with the way that UAE have been bringing this back almost at will, you want to say, you sort of feel like saying that the breakaway's cooked today at some point when the peloton wants, but this is modern cycling and you just never know.
Exactly, and what we've seen the evolution of through especially the last 2 or 3 years is not just what I talked about before, the physiological standard of ridings, but the understanding of pacing, the understanding of using the sorts of rods that you have in the breakaway, combining that with the parkour, the ebb and flow, the rise and fall of the road, the wind direction, is breaking it down a little bit more scientifically. So it's the tactical role that the brake have, given what they've got at their disposal. And quite often you think, well, the brake's actually fading now, but quite often they'll back off on purpose on a climb, and then they'll go really hard over the top in a crosswind. But what that takes quite often is real intelligence from certain riders in the group to actually give that out. So let's not rule out the breakaway yet, but it just seems as if right now, from what the pictures that we've seen, the knowledge that we've got, the squad they've got at their disposal, that UAE are in charge right now. I don't think the break have got much more, but saying that, we know they'll give it absolutely everything. But given the road that we've got, there's not a lot of climbing apart from that big hill. Will they go easy on the climb, the gap will close in and then go full gas over the top? That's the sort of thing that we see increasingly in racing, and that's one of the contributing factors to why racing is so exciting, because we just don't quite know, do we? I love it.
Turn coming up in 100 metres, and here it is. 43 seconds. Solid job done today by Domen Novak. Signed of the team to be with fellow Slovenian Tadej Pogačar, injured in the summer, back on the road here. There'll be no Tadej Pogačar at the Vuelta this year, though. He's ruled that out this week.
No real surprise, is it? I mean, he's been on full gas, save for his breaking his wrist in Liège. If you look at the results when he's been racing, keeping that sort of level of form, regardless of who you are, even if you're one of the true champions of our sport, I mean, you do need, and there's a real, I think it's important sometimes that we're reminded that these riders are human after all. He's one of the most likeable characters in the sport, one of the most ridiculously strong, but he's fallible, and we've seen that. So I think it was following the time trial at the Worlds where he finished lowly 21st by his own very high standards. So I'm just tired, just couldn't push. Got caught by Filippo Ganna, didn't he? But no, he's not going to be riding the Vuelta. Even the biggest of champions need to make sure they recuperate and recover and can refocus and refresh themselves. So we'll miss him, but boy, have we got a good lineup for the Vuelta this year.
Lineup of sunflowers there. Girasoles, as they're known in this part of the world. Town up on the hill. We're inside 2 kilometres here until the climb. Sorry, Matt.
I'd imagine that will be the climb, I'd imagine, because we've these last few Ks have rattled off very quickly. The top of the climb comes with 23 Ks to go, so not long until we actually hit the bottom of the climb. Just to finish off my point before, Warren Barguil is off to team at DSM Firmenich for 3 years.
Going home.
Indeed.
That's where he was king of the mountains, of course, at the Tour de France. Won his stages there as well. They today, by the way, have announced that their new signing, a man who joined just 8 months ago, is free to leave already. Harm Verhoeven, not seemingly in agreement with the coaches at the team about his ability to finish the race off and what he's being asked to do. They saw him more as a team player. He thinks he can chase individual results, so he's free to negotiate a contract with a new team. Interesting to see where that leads for the Belgian.
Here we go, Rob. Yeah, the gap's gone out again, 56 seconds. Again, when you've got a team that's having to do the amount of pulling that they're doing, when you hit a climb, it just if you've been riding hard on the flat, which they have been doing, as soon as you hit a climb, the sensible thing to do, the smart thing to do, so you can continue your effort over the top, is just to knock it off a little bit, keep everybody there. And one of the hardest things to do as a rider is, having ridden hard on the flat, somebody comes straight over the top and you're in the red. So it won't surprise me, and it's happening right now, as if this lead does go out to maybe over a minute over the top of this climb, because there's no other team that's assisting UAE Team Emirates at the moment. And the team that we did see near the front, Caroral, of course, they've got a man in the break, and also they've got Edouard Prades, so who's a very fast finisher. We look at other second-tier sprinters that are here. So they're in an ideal position. So right now, it's just one team that are having to do the chasing. And when you're obliged to do that, you have to race smart. So that's why the lead is now going out again.
Keep your eye on Burgos as well if this comes back together for a sprint, because they have Manuel Peñalver as well in their ranks. He's had solid results in the past. So then 25 Ks to go. And we're approaching the start of this climb. Supporter there from the Basque Country, willing on Xavier Bersategui Garamendia. And here's the start of the climb. Alto del Aguilón, third category. And as Matt was saying, it's nothing like what they're going to be facing towards the end of the week. This is not Lagunas de Neila. It's 2.4 kilometers, and it's at 4%.
Yep, they'll won't even change off their the big ring for this one. They'll just keep it rolling. It's just a long drag, a quick climb, and some little bottlenecks, as you see there. A couple of the Keeper Kern farmer riders having to adjust the bars in a rather acute fashion to navigate their way through that narrow gap between the two houses, but it opens up over the top here.
Leaving Mansilla de Burgos and heading towards the start of the climb. Still UAE in control, 105. It looks as though at least that the breakaway will get their moment to take the King of the Mountains jersey.
And I think that UAE will be more than happy with that. They're not worried about that at all. Just makes it slightly easier for them as well. Doesn't complicate matters. If they brought it back, not just opens the race again, but it provides an opportunity for riders to fire away for that move, are relatively fresh, and carry on over the top, and that could make it a harder secondary chase. When you've got fresh legs forming little breaks and there's only one team chasing, you want to be in control of all those variable dynamics as best you can. So there's obviously an amount of expenditure that they've got to do now to make sure they can bring this break back. But by the same token, they don't want to bring it back too early. Otherwise, it becomes even more chaotic, as we see the white jersey of AG2R Citroën moving up. As you said before, they've got two options, haven't they? Grame and Dorian Gordon as an outsider. Maybe looking at EF Education Easy Post as well, Rob, and Jens Kukilera used to be very, very fast, didn't he, back in the day?
Winner of a Vuelta stage, I think.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Here we go, some moves on the climb.
It's Josu Echeverria who's at the front. Everybody reacting for the moment, although it's Garcia who's taking a little longer to react in the white jersey at the back. That's understandable. The ride's normally a division below the rest of the riders in this group. You've got 4 riders from the second division there, from professional level. Number 144, Garcia, is from continental level, third division. The left-hand side, this is young Bersategui.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me the way Fuentes is riding. With that kick he's got, he wants to go for everything here. And why not? You're riding your regional race, and from what we've seen already, because this climb isn't particularly steep, Rob, it pretty suits the man who appears to have the quickest pair of legs in this group, and he's looking dulled, isn't he? Making sure he's on the wheel of Mateo Bais at the moment. That seems to be the wheel he wants. Everybody glancing around. He's getting a little bit cat and mousey now.
Bais then on the right-hand side. It was his brother who took glory in the mountains in the Giro d'Italia. Gibbons still on the front now for UAE. Larry Warbass is the man who's moving Dorian Godon up for Ushered us out, and now then, here goes Bais. He's stolen a march. He's got a gap, around 500 metres to go, we think, to the top. Fuentes, though, is trying to rush into that gap and onto the wheel. It's a sprint just to get onto the wheel at the minute. And he's not going to stay there. He goes right around the rider from northern Italy. Here comes Ángel Fuentes, and he's pulling out a gap. Bersategui trying to get onto him.
Oh, this is a good sprint. He's gone very long. As you say, still about 300 metres to go here, Rob. It's a super long sprint.
He's looking good, isn't he? Straight onto the wheel. The Basque rider is there. It looks to be between Fuentes and Bersategui, and still the finish line's not in sight. Fuentes looks like he's cooked. He's given everything. He's already taken the intermediate sprint today, but it is going to be Bersategui who rides around the corner, looks back, sees a gap, and will try and continue all the way. Euskaltel Euskadi have not won a race in 2023. It's been slim pickings so far for them, but they're going to take a King of the Mountains jersey at the end of day one in neighbouring Burgos. And that is a very good job done in the breakaway today by young Xavier Bersategui Garamendia.
Yeah, he did that really well, Rob. Good move by Fuentes, but it was just a little bit too early. And as soon as he got onto the wheel of Fuentes, he hit him straight away. No opportunity to recover, and he saw Fuentes. He was already well in the red. His head dropped. Well, that was a perfectly timed sprint, but a long one. But a real patient, strong bit of riding by the man from Euskaltel. So a good day for that squad. At least they've got something from this breakaway.
Xavier Bersategui, only on his second stage race of the season. It's his first European stage race, believe it or not, in this year. He rode the Tour de Luanda back in February. And a long programme of one-day races since then.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through. That's a lot of one-day races, isn't it? Yeah, 23 years of age. That was good. Got a right punch. That was a real crisp acceleration, wasn't it? To get himself onto the wheel. So two sprints basically. One to get himself, latch himself onto the wheel of Fuentes. And they've got, there's clearly a little bit of a kicker over the top here, isn't there? So Bais has now come across, and that little move has split this group.
We were talking about the altitude on the plateau earlier on today, on the flat plains. Just shows you how high the plains are, and the fact that we're starting at altitude basically in this part of the world. That was a 2.4 kilometre climb, a third cat. It's taken us up to almost 1,000 metres.
It's crazy, isn't it?
967 metres there at the top of the Alto del Aguilar. Highest point today. And here is Matías Bais with a 52-second gap to the peloton. But unless he can get organised with a couple of mates again, might be absolutely perfect for the peloton, because they're not really going to have to work too hard to bring everybody back, Matt.
No, once they're all spread out, they're riding on their own, of course. As a collective, far more efficient, but there is a race to win here as well. And if you sense a weakness, and also you sense that there is an exceptionally strong likelihood that the brake's going to be caught, and the terrain suits it, and you're feeling good, why not go? And this is what Bais has done. A lot more racing than the man he's just left behind as well this year, including the Giro d'Italia, of course, which you mentioned. He rode with his brother. His best place in there, his best result of the season, actually, was that 6th place on stage 8 to Fossombrone. That was a solid performance by him. And he is a man that we're used to seeing, as you said, in breakaways, just chipping away, always up the road, isn't he? And that's like one of the characteristics of Iolo Cometa, isn't it? They've had some big wins, but they're always putting riders in breakaways to try and find those opportunities.
Bersategui takes those 6 points then and becomes the King of the Mountains on day one. Still in sunflower country at the top here. Some greenery.
Yeah, there's a little bit of growth. So clearly, you'd imagine that's been irrigated or is regularly watered, because that was in stark contrast to the rest of the landscape, wasn't it, to be honest?
Yes, farming country. As we see Matías Bais down the hill, 70 k's an hour here, and the channel is inner Davide Bais to see if he can stay away. That was a very different day and very different terrain. But Gran Sasso, Italy's big rock in the middle of the Apennines. 39 seconds though, and it's coming down as the peloton want to try and stay as safe as possible and work themselves into the right position for this descent. Some quick terrain coming up. We've got a few kilometres downhill here, the next 5k or so.
In fact, once we head, we actually get to the outskirts of Burgos, where we've got the stage finish. It's actually quite a fast run-in as well. There's quite a quick drop into the last couple of Ks. Relatively straightforward in terms of direction, although there's several roundabouts on the run into the line. But yeah, it's going to be very fast. And these last 20 Ks are going to be rattled off at exceptionally high speeds. You can see Baez there just rolling this big gear around. The biggest gear he's got on his bike at the moment. Trying to get the momentum off the bottom of that climb. But it is only a relatively slender lead now as he hits another speed bump and out into the plains again.
19 kilometres to the finish line in central Burgos. No Alto del Castillo finish high up today. It's a flat finish, or as flat as you can get, as they come through Arroyal and head towards Burgos itself. Venue for the Gran Salida, the big start of the Vuelta a España a few years ago in the famous cathedral. We went cathedral to cathedral then, finished up in Santiago in Galicia. As well with Baez here for Eolo Cometa. Looking for a new sponsor next year. Not proving too easy to find, I'm afraid, for Alberto Contador and Ivan Basso. We just heard earlier on, I reported that Vincenzo Albanese has decided to leave the project and head towards Arkea Samsic and to the World Tour. No surprise that he was headed to the World Tour. I think this was something we were talking about back in the spring. Very talented rider.
Yep, and versatile as well. Just look at just his consistency in the Giro d'Italia over the last couple of years, and never, well, he hasn't quite got that big win, but is over the last couple of years, as we see the break, well, the remnants of the breakaway, the four riders that Baez has left behind, about to be caught by a peloton that are, well, let's put it this way, they are absolutely shifting here. But no, he is a rider of real class, and this year in particular, more versatile. Look at his finish in the Giro Sicilia, the way he hung on to that lead group of climbers over the shoulder of Mount Etna. I think he's one of the most exciting riders, or the most exciting rider to come through that team, and I really wish him all the best at World Tour level.
So here we go then. Echevarria in the green, the white and black of Garcia and the orange of Berasategui, all about to be swallowed up. Berasategui tomorrow will be wearing the King of the Mountains jersey. Only Fuentes left in front, there for pride, I think, more than anything at the minute. And the man right at the front is Mattia Baez.
You can just see the way that UAE Team Emirates are riding here as well. Because they have been the only team that's done any riding, they're just not making it easy for anybody else. The wind is coming from the right hand, from their left-hand side now, and in the shoulder. So the way to ride, to make it as difficult as you can for the teams behind, is to take the opportunity of shelter away from them. That's why they're riding on the right-hand side of the road. So anybody that does want to move up has got to go into the wind and not up the inside. And they've got the perfect right to do that. They've done all of the heavy lifting, all of the riding, all of the pace-making today. They've not only got a couple of the race favourites, but they've got one of the clear favourites for the sprint today as well. So the responsibility is really with them. So as a result, they're going to say, well, we're going to make it a little bit more difficult for you. So the smart thing to do, stick it on the right-hand side.
Burgos in the background. We're approaching the outskirts of the city. Here is Mattia Baez, all the way from Rovereto in northern Italy, just down the road from Trento, not too far from Moselle country, land of famous cyclists. 17 seconds for Baez now.
I'd imagine there's going to be a couple of riders. I'm just looking through this field again, Rob. Riders with the capacity maybe to go long, you know, because and it's going to be you get like, okay, Affini, he could go long, but also looking at Bahrain Victorious, they haven't really got a puncher here really. I mean, Gradek perhaps, but the rider that interests me from that team on this occasion is just Sutterlin. the type of rider we know does a lot of riding on the front. Again, not really seen him do this sort of move, but given the composition of the field, this run into the line, if you're feeling good, and the fact you haven't had to do any riding, there's going to be some riders that can go long and hard here that might try and do something. So maybe watch out for a rider like him. I do think there's going to be some attacks on the run into the line. Whether they'll be successful remains to be seen, as we've still got Baez out in front anyway.
Well, like his brother, we mentioned that stage win up in the mountains. The big surprise of the Giro this year, Mattia Baez has yet to win a race as a pro, despite being countless, almost endless breakaways. It's starting to hot up behind. That search for position and establishment of trains, keeping GC riders safe, trying to set up the odd sprinter who's here as well, begins at just under 15k's to go. 18 seconds, the road a little wider, but look at road furniture left and right. This is the typical entrance to a modern Spanish town and city. Roundabouts, industrial estates, speed bumps. You've got the lot here.
You certainly have. It's part of modern day racing, isn't it? As time has passed, the infrastructure's changed in these modern cities, the traffic calming, furniture, but riders have got used to it. That doesn't make it any easier, but the place to be is certainly out in front of sight of these obstacles. But saying that, some of these, we're on a big rain road, so they're filtering through this roundabout without having to shave off any speed at all, really. Still moving quickly, and the shape of the bunch here, again, just shows that they've got that little bit, just the little bit of wind there is from the side in their face as well. So harder on the front, but far easier on the back wheel, and that can actually give you a false sense of security. On the wheels is really easy, and then as soon as you get into the wind, it's like, oh my god. It's quite interesting. Well, that's Fellini on the front.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rob, I don't think Fellini will be sprinting out. He's moving up on the front, but yeah, Hansgrohe on the left hand side.
Green jerseys on, Movistar not too far behind them. You can see on the right hand side Robert Herzink doing his best. So good that he's going to be racing on for another season for Jumbo-Visma. Popular rider, hard-working rider. So disappointed not to get his chance to ride for Roglic at the Giro d'Italia. He should be doing that at the Vuelta, as we are 13 seconds off catching Mattia Baez, who they can now see up the road. The high-speed train line underneath which they just pass, connecting this city and giving it new life. Connection to Madrid in the last few years established.
There's always some rather creative, artistic structures in Spanish towns and cities. There's one right there. It's made of like rusting iron. It's absolutely beautiful. That's one thing. You get this contrast, a lot of industrial urban areas, but then suddenly you get this beautiful work of contemporary art stuck on a roundabout. I love it. But that is typically Spain, isn't it?
Yes, although there's a long conversation for another day about how the money is distributed as well into regional governments.
Well, let's save that for another stage, yeah.
Yes. Here we go with Baez. 6 seconds. A 26-year-old from northern Italy fighting hard. Past that wonderful modern sculpture that Matt mentioned. Green around about this time.
Ooh,
real
somebody's
contrast
taken
to what we've seen.
Yeah, sorry, Rob. Somebody just cut right across the centre of that one. One singular rider decided to shave off a couple of metres of distance by bunny hopping. And then we've got a little bit of a split there. On the left-hand side, Jumbo-Visma being led by Attila Valter in the Hungarian champions jersey, and the catch about to be made.
12.5 kilometres remaining in northern Spain. It's the opening day of the Vuelta a Burgos, and the last of the 5 men in the breakaway have been caught. Now here's that final 3 kilometres again. You can see from up on high, downhill 4% for the last 3Ks to 2. Then you've got a flat kilometre in the city. And going into the final kilometre, this is where we go. Just after the Flamme Rouge, there's a right turn. And again, a flat final 2 kilometres. Long straight after that final right turn under the Flamme Rouge.
Yeah, good to see that. Nicely placed in there. As you say, not overly complicated. That right-hander wasn't exactly enormous, was it? But the place you want to be, obviously, coming into that final right-hander, is you've got any. If you're minded to go for the sprint, you need to be at least the top 10 coming around that final left-hander. And again, the way they're going to be sprinting, given the fact that we've got a lot of the buildings there, it's going to be relatively sheltered. But interesting now, the movement that we've got in the bunch, because of this headwind, there's this constant washing machine effect, even in a smaller peloton like this. And it's the big teams, unsurprisingly. And also in the pink there, EF Education Easy Post. Cucurella, will he be rolling back the ears, or will it be for Sean Quinn today, a rider who's already had a win? Not a noted sprinter, but in a field like this, why not give him a chance? Or is this just making sure that Caicedo, for example, Cepeda, are up and near the front?
Well, you can see Sütterlin in the red, the German. Alongside him in the yellow, it's Heesink. UAE have just taken a back seat for the moment. Bora Hansgrohe are trying their very best to keep Alexander Vlasov nice and safe. Right turn here, but off the roundabout. Going in and around the industrial outskirts of Burgos again.
Yeah, these kilometres are ticking off very fast, though, aren't they? A lot of riders just thinking they want to get this stage done and dusted. That this could be quite chaotic, but the big World Tour teams making sure that they keep a tight hold on this, make sure they're controlling affairs, and right now, with 10.1 k's to go, are essentially blocking at the front of the road as they continue to move into that headwind. So much more easier in the centre, almost a complete rectangle. It's fascinating, isn't it, the way that the wind can determine the shape of the peloton, and also who wants control as well. Control, if you want to control a race, you've got to use resource, but what it does, it means things, for a bit anyway, are going to be slightly less stressful. So still difficult to call all the riders that get stuck in, but definitely watch out, of course, for Molano in the white of UAE. Garcia, as you mentioned before, Rob, in the blue of Movistar. Not seen him at all today. And then it's just a handful of outsiders, really, isn't it?
Garcia Cortina restarting the second part of his season after a few days off with family. He's been at home in Asturias. He's been back up to Andorra, where he lives. And here he is on the road, left-hand side at the back of the Movistar train. 9 k's to go. Sütterlin still at the front, the strong German for Bahrain Victorious, trying to keep them in the centre, and you can see suddenly there's another acceleration again. Another turn coming up, that's why.
Oh, look at that, 71 k's now, Rob, into this roundabout. Sütterlin is indeed on the front. We talked about him earlier on as potentially going for the sprint, but he certainly isn't doing that. Nice and calm around that bend. They're not wanting to take any risks at all. There's a big attack now on the right hand side. That's an attack that's not getting into position. Somebody has just launched themselves off the front, carrying the momentum out of that roundabout.
Looks like a Bora Hansgrohe rider. We'll wait to see what happens. No immediate big strong reaction. You'd imagine that it's up to UAE more than anything to have a go. And well, this looks like a very familiar figure.
Looks like Mr. Kemner, doesn't it?
His style, isn't it? And why not? If there was going to be something today, we mentioned all day long that there wasn't too much in terms of big sprint trains. Jumbo-Visma aren't particularly interested in that. You can see that too. Bahrain Victorious do not have any skin in the sprinting game. Another team across the front, Bora Hansgrohe themselves. You're looking here at UAE, you're thinking maybe of Movistar. Ashid Azera's teams that have to take responsibility, because Leonard Kemner, straight out of the roundabout, hit them hard. He's a strong time trialist. Are they getting him back?
Well, this is interesting. Still a fair way to go. There's still a lot of resource at the disposal of these riders. But as we were talking about before, Rob, because of the lack of sprinters teams here, and look, UAE have now dropped back. They've almost said, we've ridden all day. We have got a sprinter, but we can't do it all. And it's now up to Jumbo-Visma to try and bring this back. And also the flip side, Leonard Kemner, although the out-and-out leader for this squad you'd imagine would be Vlasov, but really, Leonard Kemner and Vlasov could come to this race as joint leaders. Not just going for a win, being a pro rider is all about winning, perhaps stealing a couple of seconds for the GC as well. So a bold move. And well taken as well. The only rider to carry that momentum out of that roundabout. It does look as if that was, rather than on instinct, something that was maybe pre-planned, but great to see.
It's a long time since I've seen some aggressive, exciting racing on a ring road, but that's what's happening here.
That's cracking
Well
move.
played, Leonard Kemner. That's the average speed down the bottom of your screen, by the way, not what he's riding at the minute. Now, it looks like it's got a little bit quicker here. We're not getting a time gap, but I can tell you that there's 7 kilometres still to go, and it's ever so slightly uphill for the next 4 Ks or so. But as you can see from this picture, it's nothing silly.
No. It's still pretty fast, you can see by the shape of the bunch, and he is moving there well in excess of 40 Ks an hour as Kemner. But the way the profile is, we've got this slight drag at the moment, horrible for an individual rider out in front because they can see him all the way, and there is still a lot of resource at the disposal of the peloton here, as you can see. It's saying they're 22, well, at 20, if that is the case, 22 seconds, that's a decent lead. But once we get to 4K to go, Rob, the road will start to tilt in the favour of the solo rider out in front because it's a long drag, 4% descent into the last couple of Ks.
Problems here for UAE, physical problems as well. That was the UAE rider, I think that was the Portuguese champion, Oliveira, maybe.
It's
it was
cramping up,
certainly
isn't it?
a big jersey there. It was certainly one of the Portuguese... Yep, that was the Portuguese champion, Oliveira.
I think it was. I think he was kicking his leg. He grabbed his thigh, Rob, didn't he? He was kicking out his leg as if he got a bout of cramp there. But there we go.
But the interesting thing in terms of what it means for the race is that who chases now, because he was the only guy. Now we get our response, and it's Will Barter who gets put onto the front for Movistar. And you are wondering when the Spanish team were going to blink.
Yep, they've done nothing all day. Well, which is fine because UAE have picked it up, but now it isn't necessarily up to UAE now. They've lost one rider, a rider that they would have used in the finale as well. Oliveira's been sitting back, hasn't been in the wind too much. He would have been a key component part of the pace setting for UAE Team Emirates. But with 5.8 Ks to go, this German out in front, Leonard Kemner, he talked about his TT prowess. Last win was back in the Tour of the Alps, and right now is looking good. And at the top of this drag, the road then starts to drop down a bit.
It's a big turn required here from Will Barter. Movistar are getting it. They're taking down the advantage. He, however, has just finished his turn. He's emptied the tank. Another rider now onto the front for UAE Emirates. They might well bring this back just in time, but it's going to require some big effort here. More locomotives that needed to be put into the move. On the right, you can see Agidezal Citroën moving up. They might need to contribute themselves. And just look at this Leonard Kemner slowly being reeled in as it stands. He's still not at the top of this hill.
No, he's still got a good couple of 100 metres to the top. You can just see as it turns round to the left, he'll be searching for the top of that one. So gravity will be in his favour rather than punching him in the gut at the moment. 5.2 Ks to go. His body language suggests that I don't think he's going to hold on. And the aerial shot we had before, Rob, as we get a study of the suffering that he's going through, suggests that the bunch are going to bring him back. One glance behind, 5 Ks to go.
Yeah, he needs that moment of hesitation. You've got several other teams moving up to the front. There's been a crash behind involving Francesco Gavazzi, who's in his last season. He's crashed with Jose Maria Martin. And this is how it happened.
Right at the back, a little ripple. Ooh, falling straight over the Armco there, the wooden. No, it's a metal Armco. But meanwhile, he's got over the top of the clumps, only got a couple of seconds lead.
Jose Maria Martin's in pain, I'm afraid. That's not good. The doctors, thankfully, are there.
Yeah.
Not good either for Gavazzi, because he would have been fancying himself maybe to have a little dig towards the end today.
Yeah, he's not a bad finisher at all, is Gavazzi. 4.5 Ks to go. It's slender lead now for Kemner out in front. It's probably best part of 5 seconds only.
Well, that may well be that as far as Martin is concerned.
Yeah, he's poor lad's in quite a state of distress. Never good to see. Oh, there we go. Let's hope he is okay. There's certainly a lot of pain, but meanwhile, this man is in a different sort of pain. Kemner constantly looking round, and the bunch bearing down on him. This is awful, isn't it? It's at that limit. It doesn't look great. Don't think he's going to pull this off, but I tell you what, Kemner is so strong, and the road now starts to drop away.
Leonard Kemner, the German star for Bora Hansgrohe, who this year tried his luck in a Grand Tour in the general classification for the first time, and my did it work for him. He rode really well in the end, right up there in the Giro d'Italia. Here he is today at the Vuelta Burgos, and he's still got a little gap with 3.5 kilometres to go. He's got one little short uphill more to take on before it really dips down. Behind, he's being helped ever so slightly by the fact that there aren't too many resources that really want to sprint. He knows that, and that's why he's just not sitting up completely here. He's still digging away.
Exactly. That's that little kicker that you just saw. Well, they're really bearing down now. It is actually it's in the centre. It's the yellow Arbor Jumbo Visma, but that is it. His job is done. To tell you, it was a good attack. 5 Ks off the front for Kemna. It just shows you that this run-in, fertile ground for trying something different, because there is no dominant sprint team here as Attila Valter now moves through to the front.
Roglic in 4th position for Jumbo Visma towards the back. The last time that a winner of this race won the Vuelta España was back in 2009. Before that, it was before the millennium. So only once a decade or so, a rider who wins this race goes on to win the Vuelta. If Roglic is to race, as we know Roglic does race this week, and win the thing, dominate the thing, he will need to turn the record books in the history as we get another attack here, this time from Euskaltel. It's being followed as well by the rider from Caja Rural. That's Mulukin for Halle Michael.
Good move. Just over the top of that little climb, came from the centre of the bunch and has opened up a bit of a gap. Clearly knows the finish here, or knows it's dropping away. There's lots of furtive looking round from the bunch behind, and no real look at the cut. There's not too much colour blocking here, Rob, at all. That's a good little move.
It looks like it might be Carlos Canal over the top for Euskaltel. We saw Halle Michael, the rider following for Caja Rural, and now we get a rider from UAE Emirates in the chase. They do not want to let this one get out of hand, because it's downhill here, and it's a big turn that's being put into close down, who I think is Carlos Canal, rider from Galicia, who rides for Euskaltel Euskadi.
Yep, through around about 2 Ks to go. The gap has been closed. He looks around, he's about to be caught. He's all back together, but that big surge to bring him back has meant that the bunch is fully spread out, and I can see Molano down at about 5th or 6th wheel at the moment, as UAE team members take it up with 1900 metres to go. And just behind it's Jan Tratnik, coming back from that injury, sat on the wheel of the man in front.
And that's a perfect move as far as Molano's concerned, really, because it's got him into the right position. It's got them strong out. Now the task is to maintain that position. You can see that Peñalver is moving up in the purple jersey. He's the sprinter of Burgos BH. On the right-hand side, several riders from Agir Desert trying to get involved. And now this looks like Luis Leon Sanchez, who's going to take off towards the front and do his best to try and stay there. He looks around, though, no big opportunity. Movistar are here, coming into this roundabout. We're not too far now away from the right turn that will take us into the final kilometre.
It looks like it is indeed Sean Quinn and Jens Kukelere, the 2 riders in pink on the left-hand side, as well as the Hungarian champion. Valter now moves through to the front. 1 kilometre to go, Rob.
Leitao being led out on the right-hand side for Caja Rural. You see Molano is on the left as we look at it here. Inside the final 950 metres they go. And it's Halle Michael who is trying to lead out Leitao, who is so good on the track. Following him is Dorian Godon, ready and waiting to go. Vendrame is the rider in 5th place. Molano now follows down in 4th himself here with the black and white jersey on. Garcia Cortina about 7th in the blue. Trying to move up on the left is Kukelere, the Belgian, in the pink as well. It's an interesting one, this. There isn't too much organisation there. There are riders from Astana as well who are ready to go. That's Godon who peels off, so it's going to be Vendrame, the man to have a sprint here for Agir Desert Citroën. You can see that Peñalver is ready and waiting, wants to make his move. It's being a teammate of his who's leading it out now. But keep your eye here on Molano, who's going to go. Also there is Vlasov, who's trying to get involved to make sure he stays in the right position. Affini on the right in the yellow, but look at him go all the way to the line. He's done it again, and he's done it with ease. It's Sebas Molano. No real competition. Sprinting and accelerating at will. He won when he was last here 2 years ago. A couple of stages on that occasion. Sebas Molano is back in Burgos, and Sebas Molano has won again here. Stage 1 goes to the Colombian. A 22nd career victory, his first since March. Vuelta Burgos. And this was that sprint again, Matt.
Yeah. Just on the wheel, I think it is. Well, it's one of the riders from Burgos, but watch this. He waits, and just look at the acceleration. Now it goes almost doubles the leg speed of everybody else. This is in slow motion. It's actually Eduardo Affini having a bit of a sprint on the right-hand side in the yellow. But look at this, he's got open air. Nobody even managing to get into the slipstream. Van Dram coming through on the inside. On the right-hand side is Garcia Cortina. But in the end, Molano had it by half a length. Could enjoy that moment, as you said, for career win number 22. And he's absolutely delighted. But yeah, head and shoulders above everybody else here.
Good performance from the biker on the right-hand side. Viktor Koretsky inside the top 5 there for Bora Hansgrohe. A change in discipline. And here is the confirmed top 10. Yuri Leitao launching his sprint but not quite getting up there. Peñalver got boxed in, didn't he? Interesting performance from Brambilla, who found himself in 7th place. Affini in 3rd. Garcia Cortina, got the feeling he was never really in it, not showing his best sprinting form there. Molano didn't really have a rival, did he? Let's be honest. It's Molano, Cortina, and then that 3rd place rider from Jumbo-Visma was Eduardo Affini.
Yep, thought Affini might give this a bit of a nudge just because he's got such a big engine, can wide it up. Even Alexander Vlasov having a go here. A real mixed bag. As you say, Koretsky, good to see him there too. But out of sight at the moment is Molano. He's already a couple of lengths clear on the left-hand side, our right as we look at it. So we're really seeing just the sheer brute force of Eduardo Affini on the left-hand side. But coming into view now with Sean Quinn in the pink there is a man out on his own, thundering through to the finishing line. Andrea Van Dram just on the inside, but no doubt about that one today. They worked hard, they controlled the race, and I think they got their just desserts. We get a look at the top 10 again. It was a real mixed bag of riders there, wasn't it?
Molano, Garcia Cortina and Affini, with Koretsky and Leitao from mountain bike and track. Then you've got Vendrame, Brambilla, Peñalver, Quinn and Vlasov all in the top 10. And well, as far as Molano's concerned, he'll be the leader in the general classification by 4 seconds from Garcia Cortina, 8 to Affini, and then you have Koretsky in there as well.